Hey everyone, it's Inspector Talon, and today I have a new version of the Soul Sand Instant Unloader that C5 previously showed. Um, so let's get into it. So it first started with C5 improving Inverse Hackerman's initial Soul Sand Instant Unloader, which I can show here. The way this worked is somewhat similar to Ilmango's first instant unloader design, where you dispense onto a sloped rail, and that makes the cart move backwards towards what would be the farm. And whenever it comes back, it routes over and then back into a very particular alignment into this soul sand. So the soul sand allows it to pick up this hopper cart, but separate out any items that are inside the cart. So this is really convenient compared to the lava cauldron design because it allows you to have this completely separated from the braking mechanism, and it's no longer necessary to break the contents on top of a rail. So this lets you drop it either onto a water stream or use this in the nether without needing to use a water stream and move rails. So this comes with some major upsides to that extent. So C5 saw that and made some major improvements in terms of size as well as wiring in particular. So he added a way to lock it with these activator rails, as well as using the similar detector rail method that he came up with in his other instant unloader design. However, there's the same similar routing above and then dropping it down here into this particular alignment. So the main issue is that this alignment and routing is quite bulky. This is a major limitation, or rather, I should say, was a major limitation. So while I was coordinating and gathering materials for a archival post for Storch Tech Discord, I was building up this design and took a look at it and realized, hey, wait a second, I think this can be compacted a little bit. So I spent a good portion of time fiddling around and came up with this design here. So as you can see, no longer do you have to route the cart above and then below in order to get this alignment. And now you're getting the alignment against a fence gate, which I can show here. And uses less activator rails for the wiring, and overall is a little bit faster because the detector rail is perfectly timed. In fact, you don't even see the hopper cart enter the dispenser. However, some of you might be wondering, okay, Talon, well, this is really similar. So why exactly are you making a video on this? And where's the water? So you can actually build this with water, similar to the other instant unloader that I showcased. Uh, that was based off of C5's other design. However, this actually doesn't really benefit anything. It ends up being slower, in fact, so it's not worth it. And you actually can forego the fence gate. However, it ends up adding another observer and activator rail. So once again, not really worth it. But let's go back to the other question of what exactly is distinct about this design? So it ends up being a surprisingly nuanced question and requires explaining exactly how the soul sand yeeting method works. So if I come over here, I have a few versions of this, and so I will start in the middle here. So with this design here, you can see that this does in fact break. So what exactly is happening is that whenever I place the cart, it starts moving forward, of course, and gains enough speed to go full speed, but because I'm placing it with only two rails, that gives it a particular alignment by the time that it gets to this power rail here, and whenever it exits the rail and is now rubbing up against the edge of this block, it is rubbing up with a different part of the cart compared to, let's say, this configuration. So the main difference here is that because there are three rails, it's going to gain full speed. So that's not the main difference. The main difference is that because carts move at 0.4 blocks per tick at top speed, there's going to be an offset depending on how many rails you might have in a given situation. So you have different alignments depending on the number of rails that you have. So for three rails, as you'll see, this actually doesn't work for yeeting because you no longer have the correct alignment whenever it goes off the rail, and you need two game ticks in this fire, but you want it to be such that on the second game tick that it's inside the fire, the cart drops down just a little bit into the soul sand, and that allows the item to spawn right inside the soul sand, and then the center of the cart is also just below the glass block. And so what that allows for is the content items to spawn under the glass. If you want to have a little bit more information about how the minecart yeeting itself works, I can link Ferrigan's video, or you can watch my showcase video on minecart yeeting as well. Either of those will go into a little bit more depth on how the minecart item spawning works. But suffice it to say, you want the minecart position to be such that the item spawns right along here so that the hopper can pick it up, and then that allows the middle of the cart to be right under the block so the items can spawn inside this block here and drop down. So then what's the major difference with this new alignment setup? So since you no longer have to go over here, instead you can use this powered rail. But the thing is, you can't just have this powered rail here. You can't go against a block. In fact, at one point I even had a trapdoor, but unfortunately that doesn't gain quite enough speed in order to work out. However, with a fence, and you can also use a chain, I'll show some other blocks that are viable once we take a look at some other, or take a look at the array over there. But if you use a fence, that allows the cart to not only go a little bit further up, so then that allows the cart to be on the powered rail a little bit longer, thus gaining more speed, but it also allows it to have a specific alignment that puts it right where we need it to be so that it dies the exact game tick that it drops down into range of this hopper. So again, the reason you need it to die the game tick that it drops down into the soul sand is so that it doesn't actually take an item out of the hopper. Otherwise, that would break the entire unloader and you would end up losing the hopper minecart. But thankfully, that doesn't happen with this alignment. As you can see, the hopper minecarts go through. So that's the major difference here. So now we can look at some arrays. So here we have C5s set up for a nether compatible collection array. So he used a block conveyor and pushed over items. However, this ends up being a little bit bulky, and while it is quite effective, there are a couple other things that you are able to do. So what I have set up over here is a simpler way. So I am just using a minecart to collect the items. So if you have this wall here, because the hopper minecart picks up items a little bit to the side, the item entities, even if they drop over to the side, will always be in range of the hopper cart. So this specific configuration does limit the overall speed of the collection system, but you can modify it to your specific needs, or if you really need it to be much, much faster, you can use a flying machine as a sweeper. That's probably going to be the fastest in terms of making it unlimited speed. But yeah, this is quite nice. So here are the other blocks that you can use, the block types. I think these are all the viable ones. I don't think I'm forgetting any. No iron, uh, what are they called? One moment. Iron bars do not work, and glass panes also do not work. They are slightly too small. So, all right, let's move on to the nice treat as well. So while I was working on this, I ended up discovering a new breaking method. So while this is soul sand yeeting, and before we had lava cauldron yeeting, now we have lava yeeting. I will caveat, don't get too excited because there are some pretty major limitations in terms of the tech, at least at the moment. Um, However, there is some interesting tech here nonetheless. So the issue before was that similar to how the soul sand eating works, you need the cart to die the tick that it gets over the hopper so that it doesn't take any items out of the hopper cart, and then so that it's able to collect the hopper cart item. The problem with lava is that it takes too long. It takes two game ticks to actually kill the hopper cart. Um, However, what I realized is that a way around that is to pre-damage the cart. So if you use a lava cauldron here, you can actually pre-damage the cart. And that way, whenever it gets in range of the lava and when it falls down, it instantly dies so that it gets picked up by the hopper. And by aligning it against this head here, the content items will spawn on this soul sand. So the problem is that this is unfortunately not reliable. You can remove the soul sand, but because there's not a physical barrier in front of this lava, there is a chance the items can jump up into the lava, just go directly into the lava, and a trapdoor doesn't immediately work because it doesn't allow the cart to drop down into the lava. So what you end up having to do is detect the cart and then flip the trapdoor and then do a lot of other shenanigans in order to make that work. And I didn't want to add all of that in this setup because it is frankly atrocious. So yeah, um, that is one unfortunate thing about this. However, there may be a solution. I wasn't able to find anything while I was working on this, and I did spend a good portion of time in terms of trying to find an elegant solution that fits within a fairly similar form factor. But if you use like a tripwire hook and go out a few more blocks, there is a somewhat reasonable way to do this in a one-way tileable fashion. So hopefully, um, some interesting tech for you all, and I hope you all learned something new today. So thank you all for watching, and thank C5 and Inverse Hackerman for their prior work on this stuff as well. And goodbye.